I found out the woman crashing on my couch was also sneaking around with my fiancé, and I proved it at our wedding rehearsal. It all unfolded from late October of 2023 through August of 2024. I stumbled onto screenshots, overheard voice notes, and pulled a small silver key out of a poetry book where it had no business hiding. People told me I was reading too much into things, that I was stressed, dramatic, seeing patterns. I'm going to walk you through how I turned every doubt into evidence, and how I flipped the script the moment everyone assumed I was at my most breakable. If this opening grabbed you, hit subscribe, tap like, and share this with someone who needs the reminder that red flags are not home decor. I've always been the friend with a spare pillow and an extra bowl in the cabinet. When Elle lost her job at the end of October 2023, I said, "Stay with me until you figure things out." She hugged me like a life preserver and called me an angel. I told her I just happened to own a very forgiving couch. Elle is loud in a way that turns a quiet room into a party. She laughs with her whole chest. When she and D, my fiancé, were in the same space, my apartment felt like a Friday night bar. Quick jokes, clinking glasses, music up a notch for no reason. They clicked. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was safe. On the night of April 23rd, 2024, at 10:53 p.m., the kettle started singing and a phone lit up on the coffee table. It was LS. I got up to grab a mug, and in that 30-second window, I saw a lock screen text we never want to see here. The sender, saved as a single letter D. My D. Two friends can text. Of course they can. But the kettle took forever, the screen didn't dim fast enough, and my stomach didn't settle like it should have. In the morning I asked Elle if D had stopped by. "Your fiancé." She yawned, stretching. "You dreamed that. I barely see him if you're not around." I wanted to believe her so badly I could have notarized it. I, the gullible one, swear under oath that this is nothing. The next few days, Elle started going out for interviews and late trial shifts. D began getting home later, 2.5-day deadline, emergency meetings, a pitch that ran long. Those excuses stuck to the ceiling like duct tape that should have lost its grip. By the second week of May, I noticed a tiny betrayal with a big voice. D carried L's sweet lavender scent on his clothes. Her favorite diffuser, her favorite perfume, the kind that clings to curtains and hoodies for days. I joked, "So, cheating on me with the house fragrance?" "That's your anxiety talking," he replied flat. "You have to stop making everything into a sign." And just like that, the chorus began. His tone, L's easy smile, and my fear of breaking a future ID already named out loud harmonized into perfect gaslighting. At the start of June, Elle announced she wanted to plan my bridal shower. I loved the idea. She raised a finger like swearing me, and "It has to be a surprise, pretend you don't know a thing." I agreed, grateful to hand it off. Then wrong number texts started landing on my phone. Vendors, quotes, spreadsheets. In one, a florist confirmed a midnight bouquet for June 7th at 6 p.m. A midnight bouquet wasn't on any of my mood boards. It wasn't mine. The night before the shower, Elle left a paperback on the dining table, poems about loving the wrong person. Tucked inside as a bookmark was a silver key with a label of A-407. Cold ran down my back. I knew that building near D's office. I knew that floor number. "What's this?" I asked, light as air. "Oh," she said too quickly, sliding it back into her bag. "A friend's spare." She asked me to hang on to it. No one believes a woman who says I felt it, so I turned feeling into evidence. On the morning of June 7th, at 10 o'clock, I told everyone I was going to sort out flowers. I went to the building on the key. The doorman let me up because I had the apartment number and the key. When the door swung open, the air smelled like lavender. On the table, 2 wine glasses, a candle, and a handwritten note that said "for us." I could have flipped the room. Instead, I took photos, slid the note into my bag, locked the door behind me, and went home. At 6 p.m., my shower kicked off. Friends, family, a 3-tier cake and monogrammed candy. Elle floated from task to task like she was born to MC my happiness. She yelled surprise when I walked in. I hugged. I smiled. I swallowed bile. Mid-party, someone handed me a group card. Signatures, inside jokes, wishes, and at the bottom, a message in the same handwriting as the note from the apartment to our future. Not your future. Our. I looked at Elle. She looked at D. Neither dared to look at each other. I'm not the most tech-savvy person, but fear teaches fast. I turned on location sharing for safety. I mentioned the recent break-ins, and nobody argued. I hid my phone behind a picture frame, camera pointed at the living room, recording a quiet time-lapse. Paranoid? I thought sound till 11:42 p.m. On a random Wednesday when Elle walked in, slipped on my favorite coat, and checked herself in the mirror. D arrived 4 minutes later. They didn't touch. They didn't kiss. They recognized each other by the silence they'd practiced. I needed more than shadows. I needed something no one could spin. At the end of June, I claimed I wanted help picking the processional song. I invited both of them to listen with me. I paired the speaker to my phone, and before that I quietly paired D's phone to my laptop. Little audio clips popped up. Laughter. One, "I owe you the world." One, "This is the right way." And then a whisper that snapped the last thread, keeping my denial in place. What we have is our prettiest secret. I didn't cry. I felt a clean, precise anger that could hang a picture frame by itself. I played a random track. "Perfect," Elle said. "Perfect," D echoed. Of course they love the word. Perfect is how people praise the paint on a facade. On my birthday, July 23rd, 2024, at 8:15 p.m., I decided to test a theory. People who have nothing to hide don't change color when you turn on all the lights. I flipped every switch in the apartment. Elle handed me a gift wrapped in deep navy paper, the same poetry book, now with a red ribbon answer Prisonno key. She told me to open to her favorite page. I did, and a little card slipped out with her handwriting for the kind of love you can't explain. "Beautiful," I said. "Looks a lot like the note from A-407. The room sagged. Someone cleared their throat. D set his glass down too gently. "What note?" Elle asked, polishing her smile with a thumb. "The apartment note. The candle. The 2 glasses. You're imagining things," D chuckled, patronizing. "You should talk to someone." "I should," I said. "To both of you. So you stop treating me like I'm crazy." I didn't blow up at my own birthday. I just blew out candles and wished for courage, because at the wedding rehearsal, I was going to open the black box. The rehearsal was scheduled for Friday, August 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the venue. The coordinator asked everyone to be there 15 minutes early. I arrived 30. I brought a thumb drive, a small box, and a thick envelope. When everyone gathered, I stepped onto the little stage. "I know rehearsals are for fixing footwork," I said, "but tonight I need to fix truth." They cut the lights. I projected the picture of the 2 glasses and the "for us" note. Then a map, 2 little dots, D's phone and L'S phone, meeting up every Tuesday and Thursday between 7:30 and 8:40, right within the radius of the building that key opened. After that, the audio giggles, whispers, and the line "our prettiest secret." I opened my box, a bottle of lavender perfume, just like hers, and the key. I set the key on the table where everyone could see it. A-407, I said to Elle, "Ring a bell?" She froze. D found his voice first. "There's an explanation for this." "There is," I nodded. "You both can try." Elle stared at the floor, then up at me, then over at D. For a second I saw the friend who'd shared my couch, my clothes, my stories. It started before you two, she finally said, small. And then we didn't stop. Before me? I laughed, and it sounded like something breaking. You slept on my couch, L. And then you went asleep with my fiancé. It was a mistake, D stumbled. A mistake that's over. Over when? I asked. Before or after last Tuesday? Last Thursday. Before or after the midnight bouquet I never ordered. Silence did what silence always does, it took their side. The wedding is off, I said. And since we're all here. I opened the envelope. Receipts. Transfers from my card to L.'s account for the party, for favors, for rides. I showed what I could. I said what ID given. And in that exact minute I realized the thing ID handed over most freely was time. I slipped off my ring. I put it on the table beside the key, the perfume, and the receipts. For objects. For angles on the same lie. That night D called 30 times. Paragraphs poured, and you can't blow up everything like this. Think about our families. Think about the invitations. He didn't write think about me. He wrote think about how this looks. L moved out on Sunday, loading her things into the same scuffed suitcase she'd arrived with. I didn't stop her. I didn't hug her. I didn't offer advice. She asked if I was really going to post something. I told her, no, I'm going to live something. On Monday, I called every vendor. I explained. Some charged cancellation fees. I paid them. I donated half the catering to a nearby senior center. I turned the other half into a quiet dinner with 3 friends who stayed. My mom went silent in a way that meant shock. My dad went silent in a way that meant dad. My sister wanted to fight D, then L, then just wanted to hold me. I let her. Sometimes the right hug is the only map out. 2 days later, L posted a story about love that happens where it shouldn't. I didn't respond. At 7 o'clock sharp, D showed up at the front desk with flowers. The doorman called upstairs. I asked him to decline. Want to leave a message? He asked. Yeah, I said. Tell him I saw. 4 months after that, on December 2nd, 2024 at 8 a.m., on the dot, I woke up to a small square of sunshine and a kind of peace that doesn't perform for anyone. Not ad campaign happy. Just silence without guilt. I still have a poetry book. I returned the key to the building office, said I found it on the floor, and I keep the for us note in the folder with my receipts. Not as a souvenir of them, but as a reminder to myself facades don't survive bright light. I learned that trust isn't a plaster figurine you set on a shelf, it's a living system that needs maintenance and inspection. That gaslighting loses its power when you keep records and keep close the people who will vouch for your sanity when someone tries to sell it as crazy. And that loyalty is not a couch anyone gets to flop on. It has a lock, an address, and a boundary. I don't know where D and L are today. I know where I am, in an apartment that finally fits me again. End of part 1 CTA. If you made it this far, tap like to boost this story, and drop a comment. What would you have done in my shoes? Subscribe so you don't miss part 2, where I cover the fallout after canceling the wedding and the specific steps I used to rebuild without looking back. The morning after the rehearsal didn't have a soundtrack. No plates shattered, no stairwell shouting, just lukewarm coffee I didn't finish and a handwritten list with one word at the top: close. Close accounts, close loops, close the door when someone tried to wedge in late explanations. I started with the practical, because the practical can be a lifeboat when the emotional is taking on water. I called the venue, repeated what I had already said the night before. They asked for a signed letter stating the wedding was canceled by the couple's decision. I told them there was no couple and I would send the letter anyway. I took a breath. I called the florist, the DJ, the photo booth lady, the mobile bar. Half of them spoke in funeral voices, the other half in that administrative tone of people who've seen everything. I paid the fees on the card that still had my name next to DS. Then I cut the card into small pieces and requested a new one. The physical part helps. Watching something split in two reminds you that you can reassemble yourself. On Monday morning, I asked the building super for a big cardboard box. I carried it upstairs like I was moving from one version of myself to another. I went room to room. In the bedroom, I packed the guest sheets we'd bought for company. In the bathroom, the monogrammed hand towels no one cared about. In the kitchen, the little glasses that said cheers to love, because the next meal didn't need that freight. I kept 3 things: a plant that revives on its own, a mug with a small crack, and my favorite pot. Everything else could leave, be donated, or wait. My mom came that afternoon with soup and silence. I let her in with both hands busy, so she wouldn't try to hug me before I was ready. We sat on the edge of my bed the way we did when I was little, and she detangled my hair. "Want me to call your aunt so she doesn't ask questions?" she said at last. "I want us not to call anyone for a while," I said. She nodded, ladled soup, and we ate without rushing. When she left, she touched my cheek with a cold hand. "You don't have to be strong," she said. "You have to be true." The difference ached like a throbbing tooth. 2 days later, Elle posted a story about love happening where it shouldn't. I blocked her so I wouldn't see it by accident. I took the poetry book out of the drawer and left it on the table in plain sight. I wanted to look at the object without shaking, to domesticate it like you sit with a skittish dog until it lets its guard down. I had already returned the key to the building office, but the little "for us" note was still in my receipts box. I slid it into an opaque envelope. I wasn't ready to tear it up. Sometimes keeping is just another way of waiting. The next Wednesday at 7 p.m., sharp, D stepped off the elevator with an oversized bouquet. The doorman called me, same as that night. He says he only needs 5 minutes. He reported, professional. "I need 5 months," I said. "Tell him to come back when the calendar has that option." The doorman let out a little laugh before hanging up, then called back to apologize for laughing. "It slipped," he said. "I like that something slipped for both of us without permission." During the first week, my phone was a minefield. I turned off group notifications, answered long messages with 3 words, left the nosy on read. That economy of words saved me from re-explaining the inexplicable. By the second week, I started therapy. One Tuesday at 4 p.m., I sat on a couch that wasn't mine and told a woman who didn't know me the simplest version of the truth I saw it. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't ask if I was sure. She asked where it hurt most. I'd been building screens and maps, and lists. Suddenly I had no language. Then I pointed to my stomach. In one session we made an inventory I still keep. In one column, everything I had done to make it work: justify schedules, believe words, pay for things, cede space, offer my home, lend my clothes, quiet my suspicion. In the other, what I would do from that day on to make my life work: log out of shared sessions, change locks, fund my personal savings, say no without footnotes, accept hugs, ask for concrete help, paint a wall, move a dresser, build a resume, and keep a written journal so no one could make me doubt my memory again. The paper looked flimsy. Over time, it became a map. By mid-December 2024, a friend who had been sleeping over some weekends so I wouldn't be alone, told me something that had weighed on her tongue for months. One Saturday night, while D was rinsing wine glasses, had leaned too close to wipe a drop off her shoulder. "I made it look like an accident," she said, "but it wasn't." I thanked her for telling me, and for not telling me sooner. A confession out of time can be its own injury. That night we tossed a dish towel D had chosen because of the color. Deciding what goes and what stays sounds childish, but it gives you a minimal, necessary authority, healing a house like it's an open wound. In January 2025, I went back to work. ID postponed it 1 week past my plan, and my inbox had multiplied like mushrooms after rain. My boss called me into her office on Monday at 9 o'clock. She asked, straight up, if I needed different projects for a while. She offered more flexible hours. I said yes. I realized that somewhere inside I still feared people would see me as the one who ruined her own wedding. No one said that out loud. No one walked on eggshells. They spoke to me like a person who had gone through something hard, not like a walking scandal. That alone put borders back on the world. The first time I ran into Elle was at the grocery store, a Thursday at 7:10 p.m. She had pasta and a lavender fabric softener in her basket. I considered choosing another line. She saw me and lifted a hand like she was flagging a cab. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice small, like the word might break. "You can say what you need," I said. "I don't have anything to add." "I did unforgivable things," she said, "but I never meant to hurt you." "Hurt doesn't ask what you meant," I said. "It happens, then decides if it's staying." She held up the softener like she needed to justify it. "It's for my aunt." I nodded. We paid. She walked out first. I went to the cleaning aisle, and picked a lemon-scented soap. I left with that smell in my sleeve just for the pleasure of breathing something else. D. Resurfaced twice. The flowers were the first. The second was a letter, slipped under my door one February afternoon at 5:05. He wrote that he understood if I needed to hate him for a while, that he wasn't a monster, and that what we had would have found its way under different circumstances. What we had. I laughed without meaning to. That pronoun had been my trap too, believing that what we had always included what I had. I wrote a short, precise reply: I don't need to hate you. I need you not to enter my home. I brought it downstairs to the doorman along with a do not admit list. He suggested I laminate a copy because rain bleeds ink. I became a devotee of his pragmatism. In March, my sister pitched a 3-day beach escape. We left Friday early and came back Sunday at dusk. On the sand, we took a picture at 8 in the morning, wet hair and puffy eyes, and posted it without a filter. I, who sometimes staged a voice note, let the image say what words couldn't: I'm tired and I'm alive. We walked the shore, ate simple fish, napped with the window open. When we got back, my apartment felt different. No one had touched it, but the absence of the future ID built had left a space I could fill with something else. I signed up for a Wednesday afternoon ceramics class. The teacher had wide hands and an easy laugh. "Clay doesn't tolerate lies," she said the first day. "Press too hard and it breaks. Don't press, and it has no shape." I took that line everywhere. Some days my life was a lopsided plate that could still hold fruit. Others, a cup that cracked in the kiln and became useless. I learned not to throw everything out when one thing broke. I learned to shape slowly. By 6:30, when the sun drifted down, I climbed the stairs with dirty hands and the feeling of having learned a slow language. In April 2025, I ran my first 5 kilometers. No finish arch, no medal. Just a running app saying good job in a robotic voice and a mirror showing me flushed and sweaty. I made a modest promise I wouldn't ask my body to save me ID, thank it for carrying me. One May Sunday at 10 a.m., I pushed open the door of the neighborhood thrift shop with a bag of plates, a tablecloth, and the poetry book. I handed the book to the owner. "Want me to add a note about it?" he asked. "Sometimes a little card helps it sell." "No," I said. "This book needs a clean slate." I watched him slide it on a shelf beside old mysteries and a battered atlas. I didn't feel relief. I felt order. Different, but just as necessary. That same month I sorted photos. Not to post or file perfectly, but to look at them without my heart leaping into my throat. I noticed that in almost all of them I was turned sideways, smiling by reflex. I started taking front-facing pictures, even if it embarrassed me. One random night at 8 o'clock, I looked into my own eyes on the screen and said something cheesy and true, I believe me. I said it all week. June brought an awkward invitation of friend's baby's baptism. I went. D was at a table in the back. He didn't approach. Neither did I. I saw myself greeting people who had privately asked if I was better, like my answer might be contagious. When I left, an older man held the door and said without looking at me, "You walk like someone who's on her way back." I thanked him like he'd told me a secret, because maybe he had. In July, it was 1 year since that bright light's birthday. I decided to celebrate it. I invited 3 friends to dinner on July 23rd at 8:15 p.m. I cooked the pasta I finally learned to get right by measuring with spoons instead of my mood. The table had no double-meaning objects or dishes with quotes. There was bread, wine, water, laughter. For the toast I raised my glass and said, "To houses that fit us again." I didn't cry. My friend R sang a line from an old song. Then we sat a long while without talking, the kind of silence that finally doesn't take sides. August arrived with an email from the venue coordinator. They'd changed systems and wanted to confirm my number. I laughed and replied that yes, I was still just a different one. That word, different, gave me permission to close folders without drama. I opened a fresh document on my laptop titled Inventory of Things I Took Back. I started small Saturday mornings, the dishwashing playlist, the long way to work when I'm not in a hurry, the color of the sheets. Later I added something big, the decision not to turn every hint into a verdict or into decor. Life returned to a rhythm where red and green lights changed for reasons. In early September, I went down to the garage to find a lamp ID stored and ran into E, a new neighbor walking a tiny dog. The dog decided my sneaker was the whole world. E apologized with a crooked smile. He probably smells Clay, he said, just to say something. He probably smells me practicing not to run away, I answered before I could stop myself. We laughed. We chatted about trash pickup, the bakery that opens at 6, the elevator that sticks on the second floor. No fireworks. Just an unpretentious conversation. Didn't know my story, I didn't know his. That let us talk like the ground was firm again. In the elevator the dog yawned and rested his head on my shoe like I belonged to him a little. I took it as a good sign. In October, I did something ID put off too long. I returned to the A-407 block. Not to see anyone, not to open anything. I stood across the street one Monday at 11 a.m. The doorman wasn't the same. I sat on a low bench and watched the revolving door that wasn't to blame for any of it. The sun hit my face, and for a while I didn't think about keys or glasses. I thought about the absurd number of doors we opened daily: the mailbox, the fridge, the subway, our own imagination. When I stood up, I crossed the street without hurrying. I promised myself that from now on, if a door opened, I'd also check what closed in exchange. All year I stitched with small actions. I swapped the pull-out couch for one that doesn't unfold, not because I'm afraid of hosting, but because I needed the couch to be a couch again. I taped to the fridge a list of 5 names I can call at dawn without apologizing for the hour. I built a go bag with documents, cash, spare keys, and a spiral notebook. I created an email folder called "I'm Not Making This Up" and saved any record that might help, not to accuse anyone, but to protect me from myself when memory wobbles. Therapy, noon walks, planless Sundays, and Clay stayed. The urge to justify every move to everybody did not. The last time I heard about D was through mutual friends' new job, new neighborhood. The second to last time I heard about L was a photo of her in a big group. I remembered her electric laugh and genuinely hoped she wouldn't lose it trying to be someone's apology. The last thing was a message from M. She says she's sorry in her way. I wrote back that apologies can be another way of staring at your own mirror, and that I, for now, was looking out the window. On December 2nd, 2025 at 8:20 a.m., I did the thing ID promised and kept dodging. I opened the opaque envelope with the "For Us" note. I read it one last time. I folded it slowly. Underneath, in pen, I wrote "For Me." I placed it in a clear box with a few proofs of my year: a ceramics receipt, a seashore photo, a movie stub with my sister, a wobbly bowl sketch, a napkin where R had written pasta, bread, laughter, water. I snapped the lid shut. I didn't burn it. Not every ending needs fire. Some endings are simply filed, so you can prove to yourself you chose again. That night at 8, I invited M, R, and my sister over for soup. Nothing fancy. Before they arrived, I sat on the bed like I had with my mom and asked myself whether this version of me was strong or true. I chose the second. After they left, I washed dishes to a silly song that insists life goes on by itself. It doesn't. Life goes on with what you decide to shoulder. I accepted the weight with a new kind of tenderness. I learned things that don't fit on a mug. When someone calls you crazy, sometimes they mean it doesn't serve me if you remember. You can live without a perfect apology. You can arrange your house to have fewer hiding places. Love is not an extended warranty or damage insurance. It's a contract renewed every morning with clauses read out loud. Some warnings are not to be festooned with twinkle lights. Some doubts dissolve not because someone removes them, but because you turn them around until they stop scaring you. And I learned to hand back what isn't mine: keys, guilt, other people's responsibilities, little just-in-case bags. I don't know if he'll ever get married. I do know my Sundays are mine. I jog slowly at 7, open windows at 9, make coffee at 11, and read with my feet on the kucha couch that is only a couch again. If a friend needs a place to stay, I'll offer my home and a candid talk about limits. I want mistaken tuition for love's enemy again. Intuition, I've learned, is love's life preserver. The week after that soup night with my friends, I sat by the living room window at 8 on the dot and wrote a title in a fresh notebook: Short Manual for Coming Back Home. Not a to-do list, but a list of things to keep doing. I learned the hard way that returning to yourself isn't a destination. It's a daily walk in sensible shoes with a map you keep correcting. I wrote down 5 verbs, 1 for each weekday, to keep from overloading myself. Breathe, tidy, ask, say, care. Then I filled them in. Breathe at 7:30, before I look at my phone, open the window and count 20 slow breaths. If my heart sprints, count again. If my mind chatters, name 3 things I see and 2 I smell, even if it's cold coffee and dish soap. Tidy 10 minutes a day for 1 tiny category. 1 drawer. 1 email folder. The back of the fridge. Fill a small bag with what I don't need and get it out of the apartment the same day. Ask for concrete, finite help. Can you come Saturday at 11 to hold the ladder while I hang a lamp? Can you swing by the drugstore for gauze? People who love me exhale with relief when I say what I need instead of making them guess. Say practice short sentences that protect me without burning bridges. I'm not talking about that today. I'd rather not answer. Thanks for the intent, but that doesn't help. Can we change the subject? Care move my body, even if I don't feel like it. Eat something real, even if I'm not hungry. Go to bed without screams. If my head spins, power down guilt whenever it tries to pass as responsibility. By mid-January, I felt the itch to turn the page fast. The whole world mass produces sparkly slogans. I chose fewer slogans and more gestures. I called my Aunt C, patron saint of home remedies and sharp proverbs, and asked for her heartbreak cure stew. She read the ingredients like a grade school teacher. I cooked slowly with the radio on. I ate standing at the counter, watching my shadow in the window. I cried a little without a plan. Then I washed the pot with a new sponge. Sometimes dignity fits inside a hot bowl and a kitchen that smells like someone taking good care of herself. I kept bumping into E, the neighbor with the tiny dog. One Tuesday at 4:40 p.m., he asked me to hold the leash while he fished for his keys. The dog flopped onto my sneaker again. We talked trash schedules and usual nonsense. Before we rode up, E said something that stuck. I've been where you are. Not the same, but close. If you ever need a second set of eyes while you hang something heavy, knock on my door. No promises, no socials, just a small, doable offer. I took mental notes. Safe people offer small, keepable things. By late February, I brought a different notebook to therapy. Memory log. I wrote scenes as if they were photographs. The light at 7 p.m. The sound of keys, the one sentence that kept me from arguing. Not to cling to the past, but to stop gaslighting when it sneaks back dressed as nostalgia. My therapist gave me a metaphor. I still use your memory as a table. If someone tries to shove it, weigh it down with what's real: records, messages, your breath, witnesses. I liked picturing my papers as weights that keep the wind from rewriting events. In March, my sister dragged me to the neighborhood market on a Sunday at 11:15. I bought a linen shirt with a crooked seam. The seller discounted it for having a flaw. I chose it because of that. At home, I hand-washed it. When I hung it to dry, I thought maybe that was the point, wearing what doesn't pretend to be perfect. I also made room for well-mannered anger. At a family lunch, a very opinionated uncle began retelling my canceled wedding like a funny anecdote. I said, calm and rehearsed, "Don't tell my story for me." The silence creaked for a moment. Then we moved on to dessert. You don't always need a speech. Sometimes one boundary sentence is enough. I promised myself I wouldn't romanticize intuition, but I wouldn't ignore it either. If a plan exhausted me before it began, I canceled. If a person sounded like an excuse, I stepped aside. If an invitation arrived packed with "you have to," I asked for whom. Saying no isn't violence, it's hygiene. In April, I adopted a ritual. Gave me the quiet hour. Every night at 8, I shut everything off for 60 minutes. Sometimes I read. Sometimes I sewed on a button. Sometimes I just listened to water moving in the pipes. It's not about pretty meditation, it's about teaching my brain that silence also belongs to me. With E, we traded neighbor favors. He steadied the ladder while I strung a light garland. I watched the dog one rainy Saturday. We split a bulk produce order. Not romantic cordiality with boundaries. It felt good not to translate my tiredness. In May, I sent 3 resumes for a project that scared and excited me. The interview was a Thursday at 9:20. Instead of selling myself, I talked about what I'd learned. I'm good at building teams that protect time. I spot cracks in plans early. I carry emergencies without shouting. They gave me a 6-month contract. I celebrated with coffee and a slice of ricotta pie. I took a photo. I didn't post it. Not every celebration requires spectators. One June night at 10:10, I felt the urge to text L. I opened the message window and watched the cursor blink. I closed it. I wrote to myself, instead, not everything that hurts deserves a letter. I tucked that into my unsent things notebook and slept better than I expected. Mid-July, I decided not to commemorate the discovery's anniversary with sad rituals. I set a table with 4 new objects to rewrite the old ones where there had been a key. I placed a plant that sprouts without asking where there had been somebody else's lavender. I lit a sandalwood candle I bought for me where there were receipts. I left a budget notebook for my future where there was a ring. I set a pendant my mom gave me when I turned 15. I toasted with water. I wished myself patience. I wished myself humor. On July 23rd at 8:15 p.m., I repeated the pasta dinner with 3 friends. This time I added a lemon oliviol salad. R. hummed again. M. brought warm bread wrapped in a towel. My sister arrived late and sat on the floor with the plate on her knees. I heard myself laugh with a laugh ID missed. August brought a new question: what do I do with wanting? Not wanting a wedding or a shared lease that can wait, but the wanting to make room. I said yes to a movie with E on a Friday at 9 p.m. We picked a film no one recommended. We shared popcorn. We walked home on the wide sidewalk. At my door he said thanks and didn't try anything more. I loved a scene with no agenda. The next morning I jogged 3 kilometers under a murky sky that still felt like light. In September, I gave a short talk at work: how to care for projects without losing yourself. I didn't tell my story. I talked about communication protocols, realistic timelines, and what to do when an urgent becomes a habit. A teammate said afterward, "Weird how something can be so simple and so useful." I smiled, thinking the best tools sound obvious until you need them. In October, I got a message from a friend of Elle. She wants to apologize. For real. I replied, I forgave her so I could sleep. That doesn't mean I want her back in my life. I closed the chat not out of meanness, but care. Some doors close without locks, but with decision. On December 2nd, 2025, at 8:20 a.m., I opened the envelope with the "For Us" note again and wrote beneath it in pencil "For Me." I put it back, then into a clear box beside small proof of my year, the project agreement, the crooked seam shirt photo, the market receipt, the movie stub, my Aunt C's recipe on a scrap, and a napkin where R. had scrawled pasta, bread, laughter, water. I didn't burn a thing. Not every closure needs flames. Sometimes it needs labels, files, and forward motion. What stayed and what I let go. What stayed: the certainty that trust isn't a debt collecting interest, it's a loan renewed by actions. The reflex to verify if something smells off. Check dates, times, histories. Not to police everyone, but to keep myself from being convinced reality is something else. The habit of writing what did happen and saying what I won't tolerate. What I let go: the endless explanation. I don't retell my story to entertain anyone. I don't sand down my boundaries so someone else can be comfy in a chair that bruises me. I don't turn intuition into decor or pain into spectacle. I learned to distinguish ending from closing. Ending is a period. Closing is a door that doesn't rattle when the wind changes. Today the house doesn't creak. If someone knocks, I ask, "Who is it?" And more importantly, what are you bringing? If it's guilt gift-wrapped, I don't open. If it's patience and bread, I slide the chain. I don't know if he'll ever marry. I do know my Sunday mornings are mine. I jog slow at 7, throw open windows at 9, make coffee at 11, and read with my feet up on a couch that's back to being just a couch. If a friend needs a place to crash, I'll make up the bed and also have a brave conversation about the house that is me. If life ever puts me in front of another secret with an address and an hour, I want light candles for it. I'll flip on the light. If this story hit close to home, tap subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that red flags aren't decor. Drop a comment. What would you have done in my shoes? What boundary are you keeping from now on? Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.